Good afternoon from Timeform HQ. We're here in conjunction with the release of our new book, Horses to Follow Over the Jumps, with the National Hunt season not too far away now. I've got our Jumps Editor Dan Barber here to talk about the season coming up, and we've both picked out 3 horses each from the 50 to talk about as well.
Yeah, first off, do the spiel about the book, as we should. There are loads of these around at this time of year, all of their own merits. I tend to buy most of them. It's nice to compare notes, but I do think we perhaps do go the extra mile. We've got reams of our perspective entries, the old reports for the top races from the season before. We've got a separate Irish list. We've got Jamie Lynch doing an anti-post piece. We've got rising stars, so trainers and jockeys that you need to be following as punters and enthusiasts. And then the meat of it, of course, is the 50 to follow that we've been doing for years. And it takes a lot of work finding them, whittling the list down. Horses you think are definite soon become no-go areas as the seasons develop. I'll start adding them now, in fact, potential ones from the early part of the season. If they're still there at the end of the season, fair enough, a lot won't be. Yeah,
there's things as well like quotes from the trainers, which I think are always really good as well. There's a particularly well-named horse in there that Tom George has put up this year called Seddon, who might be one to follow. So
yeah. I wonder why I like him. Yeah, so it's nice. We started the trainer quotes thing, not because we're beholden to them. In fact, I'd say Timeform is far away from that as you can get, just listening to what the trainers say. But it's nice to know they're in one piece, and it's nice to know which route they might be taking. So if we highlight a horse that we think is going to be a better chaser, if the horse's mouth can tell us that a horse is going over fences, then it's the perfect starting point.
So I'll let you win the metaphorical toss, and you can choose whether to serve first or second.
I might as well serve first. If we alternate, and I'll choose one from not lower end of the spectrum at all, but perhaps less heralded, and that'd be a horse called Brewing Up a Storm, who was a bumper horse last season, who was well touted ahead of his debut, won really well despite going right round the houses at Hereford, shaped so well in a race at Newbury. I backed him for the champion bumper on the back of it, and predictably he wasn't a runner in the race. They decided to give him time. I think that patience can pay off. He looks like he's got a real engine. In the Newbury race he was dropped out towards rear. It was a race won by AC Milan. Very little got into it, but he made a sweeping move early in the straight before it petered out, and he started to edge left as he tired late on. Forgivable defeat, but one in which his reputation was enhanced. So novice hurdler for this season, I imagine, Brewing Up a Storm. Trip-wise, probably go up with him, 2.5, but to me it looks like he's got a lot of pace. You wouldn't be at all put off if he reappeared over 2.
Okay, the first one I'm going to put up is from the Gary Moore yard. It's very French, so I'll have to pronounce it probably Aimoir.
Yeah, very well done.
It's a 4-year-old at hurdler, and made a bit of an unconventional start last year because he went straight into hurdling. And he bypassed bumpers in doing so, made a really lasting impression as well. Looked like he was going to win at Ascot in January.
Yeah, I remember that race.
And then crashed out at the last. As a result, was sent off a really warm order at Sandown next time out, and disappointed. But it's probably a massive clue that they then stepped him into Grade 1 company at Aintree. He was only down the field that day, but he looks like he's got loads of potential. And has been given a really nice mark as well to start off with, BHA of 129, so that looks really workable. He's well bred, and he's sports colours as well that are noticeable. Ashley Head owns them, also Armad and Benatar, and it's worth noting that they've teamed up Gary Moore and Ashley Head, and they've got a level stakes profit of £85 over the past 5 years. So he's definitely one to keep on the right side of, and you could see him building up a sequence in Handicap company this year.
Yeah, I spoke to Hayley Moore about this horse, actually, done a bit of work there on ATR, and I think they do think the world of it. I'm pretty sure Hayley looks after him at home as well, and they were obviously disappointed when the day he fell at Sandown, but she did ask me, the day he was disappointing at Sandown, having fallen the time before, she did ask me, like, can you get some numbers on the chances of a horse running to form on the back of a fall? Got our statty boys like Tom to look into it, and there was a clear correlation between horses not performing on the back of a fall. So we were able to give that to Hayley, and hopefully she'll give us the nod when the horse is going to win this year.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those. It was all over by the shouting that day when he was going to win. So really, he's a winner in waiting, you'd think. So it would be no surprise should he get going this year?
Have you just hit one down the line back to me now?
I have, yeah, I have.
Yeah, so I'm going to go, probably my horse I'm most looking forward to, unconventional to go in the middle of a 3, but it's Cade Erin. And on trips to racecourses last season, you'll see loads of horses. I was probably on track for ATI about 7 or 8 times. And you see loads of horses that are good lookers, have scope, but none had the sort of the range, scope and athleticism of Cade Erin for me. He's trained by Michael Scudamore. Saw him the first day he ran over hurdles at Chepstow where things didn't go his way, but it was a deep race. I think it was the race won by Dynamite Dollars from Lost in Translation. He signed off the season getting better and better. Saw him at Uttoxeter again, and once more he was the clear standout in the paddock, probably the whole day. Just a gorgeous looking animal. If ever you could draw a horse that was going to be at least as good a chaser, indeed I think he'll be a better chaser, it's him. I suspect that's the way they're going to go early. Don't think they're going to bother with handicap hurdles. And for me, just an extremely interesting animal for novice handicap chases, because whatever mark he's got based on his hurdles form won't factor in the improvement I think he'll make for fences. And if you go racing this year and see him, it's worth taking the trip down to the paddock, because you won't see a better looking animal.
Is that back to me then?
Back to you.
I know I've already put up Seddon for completely biased reasons, mentioned him, and I'm going to sound no better now when I put up a Hemmings horse in the name of Exton Lane, because that's where I'm from. Majestically interesting lane as well, nothing to do with the fact
Pretty lucky we've got all these horses named after connections to you, otherwise
I know, yeah.
it's a bit thin.
I know. Because, well, we're an athletic train there, so he's got to be born for
he's not
born for
second
greatness.
division like they are.
There's no need for that. But yeah, he's good in his own right as well in the racing front. He's, as you'd expect with a Hemmings horse, everything they do is centred around the Grand National.
Yeah.
That's why they're so successful, and he's bred to be suited by further in time, and he showed plenty of promise last year as well. He started off in a bumper at Bangor on debut, was third, and then was slowly switched to hurdles and steadily progressed, and opened his account at the 4th attempt at Fomwell by 17 lengths as well. So you know, he's plenty of ability, and then followed up under a penalty at Newbury as well. It's a clue of how well they think of him as well, that they then stepped him into Grade 1 company at Aintree at the national meeting and the Mersey Novices Hurdle, and he was down the field that day, but in all reality he's a chaser on looks, as you'd expect for a Hemmings horse, and he's the type that could be a really smart novice chaser this year, especially as they draw his stamina out, and he's definitely one to follow.
Couldn't agree more. My next and final, will be one that's got a bit more of an imminent feel, because he's entered tomorrow, and
no pressure.
That's the clock is ticking for Stuart Edmonds, Kieran Gethins. Wind back the clock a year ago, and I was shouting from the rooftops about a horse called Thomas Campbell to win that Pertemps qualifier. They couldn't get enough on him. He was never really in much doubt. Admittedly, he didn't really progress afterwards. He did win another race or two. Perhaps he didn't hit the heights that were expected, but he became tricky to place above all. But the clock is ticking to horse. I think he's got a bit more handicapping scope anyway, and he's just crying out for the trip for me, the way he shapes. He ran at Chepstow last week, the week before last in the Silver Trophy. Had a good position turning in, but lost it as he got outpaced. It was a crawl of a race, a complete farce. The leader ended up in the frame despite him being a complete rag. Johnson gave that a perfect ride, dictating. So it was a tactical affair. He got outpaced as the gallop lifted, but he was staying on so eye-catchingly at the end. He'd shaped well under similar circumstances at Raisin on his reappearance. Did some good work as a novice. Some of his form lines as a novice read really well now. We're still only scratching the surface of his ability. He's 6. It's only his second season of full racing, and his first one was not hectic by any means. I think he's a really good animal, this. I think he'll prove himself a smart stayer, and he gets the chance to do so in about, 26 hours' time, when we'll be sat on the couch and hopefully be winning.
Excellent. I'll round things off then. I very quickly mention the National with
Why not?
Trevor Hemmings, give it a bit of a name drop, and the last horse I'm going to mention very much has the Grand National aura around him. I mean, he's only 6, he'll be turning 7 next year, so you're more than entitled to poo-poo it in terms of this season, because we know how poor a record 7-year-olds have got in the race. But Thomas Patrick has looked really good so far in terms of staying. He came a long way in a short space of time last year in staying chases. I mean, he made his rules debut in a 2-mile novice hurdle at Southwell in October, and from there he was switched to fences and really started clicking together. He won on his debut at Exeter and then built up a winning sequence, eventually winning a Grade 3 handicap chase at Aintree, so he's already got course form under his belt. He looks like the sort that will relish it the more and more as he goes through the season, and the Grand National is probably the long-term thing, but he looks the ideal type off his current mark as well, 148 for the Welsh National.
Yeah, Ladbrokes Trophy, anything like that.
Yeah.
Freakish stamina, hasn't he? He's got loads of stamina.
Absolutely, and bottomless ground doesn't seem to be an issue either, which, you know, the Welsh National usually is really testing.
Yeah.
So he looks the ideal type, and as he gets more mature, I'm sure that they'll be thinking Aintree with him again as well.
Yeah, well, he was taken out of a race the other week. I was at the Chepstow meeting in which Rock the Casbah was going for another win and didn't. But in that race also was stepped back another member of the 50. He's a very similar type to Thomas Patrick. Indeed, they've run against each other. Then they run a novice chase together, and both look handicap staying chasers to follow. And Tom Lacey, trainer of Thomas Patrick, is one of the rising stars who we list, one of the 2 trainers. He too has an interesting runner today at Cheltenham. First time over hurdles, who won a bumper up at Ayr, and his only start went well back. So everything ties in seemingly, and let's hope this fella can make the strides he seems likely to, because there's so much to like about him.
Yeah, and it's very much well worth a go. It's £9.95. There's
less than a tenner.
Less than a tenner. There's not much you can get.
It
for
cost
less
me
than a tenner.
£19.50 for a single from my train station near Manchester to Halifax today. I could have bought 2 copies of HTF virtually, one for me and one for my brother-in-law.
You see,
To quote Partridge.
that just makes me sad, because I just thought, why did mine only cost £12? And then I realised I'm in the last year of my rail card. I'm running out of time now. The 26.
You said earlier that you don't even remember the Spice Girls, you're that young. You don't understand how depressing this is for someone in his mid-30s.
Well, I remember them in their absolute peak in 1999, but I wasn't very old to remember it. I was only 7, so...
Born in the 90s, God.
Yeah, 92.
Anyway, buy it. £9.95, loads of stuff in it. Horses, trainers. If you want the Timeform view, what we said about the Champion Hurdle, what we said about the Gold Cup, if you're looking towards betting in these races anti-post this time around, for me, I'm looking at Somerville Boy for a Champion Hurdle. Is the only anti-post position I've got so far, but I'm sure a flick through what we said about these horses at Cheltenham last season will give you a bit more meat on the bones as to what you might want to be backing. And the aim is to record a low stakes profit. It's hard, but it has been done several times, and yeah, we need a few big ones. Hopefully it does start tomorrow with my first run of the clock is ticking.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks very much anyway for joining me.
Cheers, Nick, as always.